Yeah, I'll call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Adoption of the agenda. Who would like to do that? Any changes or problems with it?
I'll move it.
Councillor Schlossberg, all in favor? Carried. Regular meeting, February 11th, 2019. Any questions, Craig?
No, everything looked all great.
Good.
I'll also make a motion to adopt the minutes as presented.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Carried. Okay, first one, bylaw 1650, cemetery. First reading, Marion.
Okay, so before you tonight is draft for the cemetery bylaw. This has not been updated since October of 2011, so there's a number of changes that we've made to the bylaw. We've had some addition of definitions and some cleanup of some of the administrative functions, replacing superintendent with the director of infrastructure services, those types of things. We also have allowed for a refund of perpetual cares or cancellation at the request of that. After 30 days, we would withhold a $50 administrative fee just for that. Also, we removed specifics regarding any provincial certificates or permits that may be required, and simply just referencing that. So as that changes provincially, we don't need to change the bylaw, it just references that. We also included the allowance for 2 instead of 1 cremains to be permitted in any full-sized plot after the burial of caskets. So if there's, a casket in the ground, then you can put 2 cremains with that as well. We also designated additional special sections, including a cremation columbarium, the infant baby section, and scattering grounds, so the definition and where those actually are located within the cemetery. We separated the offenses and fines into 2 separate sections that used to just be under penalties, and then also adjusted the fees. So the fee structure, again, has not been updated. We compared that with municipalities of similar size and in our area, and we're within, our proposed rates are within reason compared to those. Burial rights, we had an increase from 300 to 500 and 100 to 200 for cremation plots. The addition of vault burial fees for cremation burials, as well as winter fees for cremation burials. There was a significant increase to late funeral surcharge and weekend holiday surcharges, and that's due to the rate that we have to pay our staff when they're called for overtime or weekend work. There was also a 50% increase in perpetual care fees from 200 to 300, so the perpetual care is intended for the maintenance of the cemetery long term. And then other fees just changed marginally, including the columbarium niche and opening and closing for a monument, or for interment, sorry. There's also something I guess I want to bring to your attention is with regards to monuments. So the practice has been, since the new cemetery was created, the area for the new cemetery, that we don't allow for monuments above 8 inches, so a pillow top monument, and that's for maintenance purposes, and also being able to get in and open and close graves without having to move headstones. That new cemetery was created, or the new portion of the cemetery was created in the early 1970s, and that's basically been the practice since, and so we've included that in the bylaw, just for clarification. As well, let me just see here, sorry, I don't think there was anything else in particular to point out. I know there's been some concern addressed to me as far as the monument height, and so Mayor, if you have some discussion on that, I can possibly answer some of the questions with regards to that.
Okay. I was approached by the local funeral home about the height of our 8 inches. And on checking other cemeteries and knowing Calgary's, because I've used it a few times,
Right.
it's anywhere from 2 feet to 36 inches.
Yeah.
And there's been like, they gave me 2 examples and I talked to another one where they went to Staveley to bury their loved one because we wouldn't allow them to put a monument over 8 inches tall and they wanted something like 2 feet. So to me, it's been way too restrictive for something. Like these pillow top ones are simply a convenience to the town. It's no consideration for the people that are actually using it.
Right.
And I think it's a mistake to be only worried about our little problem and not the problems that somebody is dealing with,
Yeah.
the grief of putting somebody in the ground. That's my 2 bits.
And the 2 bits of the funeral home.
Yep.
If I can just speak to the
Yeah.
reason for that. So the way the design of the graveyard is, we only have 6 feet between, there's 2 rows. And between those 2 rows, there's a 2-foot strip.
Yeah.
The headstones all go on the west side of the plots. And then there's a 6-foot strip and then another 2 rows with the 2 feet in between. So with our equipment, we're not able to go in and get around the headstones and get in that 6-foot strip because we don't have a side bucket on a backhoe or whatever.
No, that's just be.
Yeah, so there's times where we're not able to get in and dig those without having to straddle a headstone or if there's one already buried and we have to get to the next. So if there was no height restriction, then we would have to actually move those headstones. And with the removal of those, if we were to dig, we run the risk of damaging that. And if we damaged a headstone, obviously we would have to replace that. The way the headstones are set, they're on a cement foundation, and then there's a granite base, and then the headstone on top of
Yeah,
that.
they're on
And
2
those are all
pins.
sealed together. And so you'd have to, remove the seal, and then you put them in a sling and move them
Yeah.
away. So that's one of the reasons why the restriction has been put on, so we could straddle. We talked a little bit, I've asked, I've asked Mike a lot of questions about this as we were preparing this bylaw, and with the concerns that the mayor had brought to my attention. Obviously, with graves, we're trying very carefully to show the respect for the remains of people in the cemetery. So we don't like to go across graves if at all possible. They try not to drive on them if possible, right? There's times when you're gonna have to do that. But we try not to. And the other thing, I guess, was just, like I said, the vehicle only has about 1 foot of clearance, and so that's something just to keep in mind. If we do go to a different style of headstone allowance there, then we possibly would have those things to consider. Now, my understanding is, and I didn't go out and look at it, but my understanding is that there currently isn't any taller monuments. There might be some that are a little over the 8 inches, but in the new cemetery, they've all been the pillar monuments
Yeah.
to this point.
Yeah, I went over and had a look and then I talked to Dave about when they're in there actually digging it. And they always go on the graves and dig from the graves because there's no room anywhere else. And the old section, like I had to go find a while ago in the old section, one particular grave that I'm going to have to use in the future. And they reach over top of the large headstones for all that area, and it's exactly the same.
Yeah, it's designed a little bit different.
But it's
too.
a little
The
wider, but
layout's a
not-
little different, yeah.
Not much different. They're still reaching over top to get it done.
Well, and there is some that they can do that they could reach over. But again, there's a risk of damaging the headstone.
Well, that's why I think like 2 feet and operating equipment most of my life, I know 2 feet and 8 inches is not going to make a difference for reaching over top of it.
Again, it's up to council. That's just good practice, and so we formalized it in the bylaws.
So that's
question about the columbarium and why it is so expensive in comparison to getting a plot.
It's
Am I
just
reading it wrong?
the
or-
cost of buying the columbarium, I think, is quite, we looked at one, it
It's like
was
970.
36,000 for 30, was it? 30 places?
30-some thousand, I believe it was.
Yeah, 30 something, I think it was 36, was it?
Wow, I'm just amazed that it's more expensive to.
Yeah, but when you
Yeah.
buy
In
the
a
plot,
wall.
you still have,
There's no maintenance fee.
yeah. There's no
One
ma-
shot deal.
And,
One-shot
and
deal.
no open, no close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that, I was gonna say, actually, if you total the cost, because if you purchase the burial plot, then you pay for the opening and closing.
Right.
So it's what we're suggesting is 500 for the burial plot, and then the opening and closing in the summer would be 300, or in the winter would be 450. And if you purchase the columbarium, sorry, I'm just trying to find it here quickly. Yeah, 950, so they'd be similar.
Right, okay, thank you.
The columbarium takes, like, they're for 2 urns.
2 for 1.
Yeah.
Both go in there.
Well, the graves are actually now 3 for 1, but,
What a deal.
because you can put 2 urns in each grave. But that's matching, because Calgary's been that way for a long time.
Have they? Wow. Could
Actually,
use the
I have a
space.
double plot in Calgary. We can put 4 coffins in, 6 urns in a double plot.
Makes a lot more sense.
The perpetual care, is that yearly then for whoever, or is that
No,
just
that's
a
a
one-time?
one-time.
Just the one, yeah.
No, you don't, once you've done
Wouldn't that
with
be
it, the town takes care of it after that.
I agree with the mayor, we shouldn't be limiting people's grief by our limitations. So, if they want a 2-foot memorial, what do we do?
Yeah, I just think, and having a little history in it lately, I just feel we're restricting those people, like, with what their
Most-
wishes are.
Most people choose a pillow top
Yeah.
without being, but us putting a limitation on that
It's-
doesn't feel
Yeah,
right.
it's the older, more traditional families that want the headstone.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely the cremation is becoming
Yeah.
more prevalent,
Right.
but you're giving choices to the people so they can choose anything they want. I just think it's too restrictive at that
I
time.
agree, for
limiting.
people who appreciate that style of tradition and ceremony. I have spent lots of time in that cemetery, and I think that the headstones represent something, right? Each of them represents something, so I'm with you in allowing more. That'd be my preference, if their machinery can get around it,
We'll find
but
a
it
way.
sounds like they can.
Anybody else?
I'm just saying we had to change ours to fit. Because what Dad had picked for Mom, and then when we went to bury it, we had to get a different one.
And there's a family going through grieving and you were forced
Yeah.
into a
We had to
situation.
change and get the low profile.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, I think that's
Is
a
what it
mistake.
is, but
Right, you survived it, but,
yeah.
yeah.
And it's enough pressure on the families as it is, and then we go and put more restrictions on them.
Do you have an opinion?
Well, my only opinion is, we make it a habit, when we're in older areas, that's actually where we go and do a tour of, and it's usually, teach the kids a little bit about the history of the area, by it, and the artwork and the representation of the transition through the years. It's a neat way to teach kids a little bit of history. And when you get to the pillow tops, half of them are grown over. It looks very unkept in
Looks
comparison.
I did do a tour, I went over and wandered around over there, and it almost looks military to me.
Yeah.
The way it's so
Flat.
cold compared to other
Utilitarian.
cemeteries.
The old side is pretty amazing.
The old side's pretty amazing,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's some really
A lot of
beautiful
history
stones
there.
in there. Yes.
So anyways,
Do you have an opinion?
No, I think it's a hard thing to limit people when they're trying to make that choice and stuff, but I
And
mean,
I also get the flip side of it too. You don't want to be that guy that accidentally, oh, we tapped that. You know, it's,
right,
you know, if it's something you guys got to look at where, you know
Once in a
what,
while
it's
you
going to
gotta be
take you an
careful.
extra half an hour to dig that because of the fact there's so many stuff. Well, then
you take your time.
you
and
take
go.
your time, you do it.
Yeah.
And
What about you, Gav? Do you have an opinion?
Well, leaning towards the, because you like walking through an old cemetery with the,
Mhm.
it just,
Think
yeah.
you're gonna bother to, be put in the ground, right? Should have a choice of what goes on top.
I always go to the old section because of that rather than the.
Well, especially if it's people are choosing to go elsewhere,
Mm.
just for that reason.
Well, yeah,
Is-
I talked to
is
one and there was
disturbing.
2 other examples given
Right.
to me. He wouldn't give me names because that's against FOIA, but,
Right.
you know, so that is happening and that's very unfortunate. When
Right.
A person under that much pressure is all of a sudden more pressure added.
Mhm.
And it's for the traditional families.
That's right.
It won't affect, you know, a lot of us, but
That's
it
what
does
this
affect
community is
people.
built on, is the tradition.
Yeah.
People who planted roots here.
So we can pass the first reading with a amendment, or you can pass first reading and amend it later, or we can leave it the way it is. So you guys gotta decide. I can't.
If we're gonna make the change, I would prefer that I come back with an adjusted draft prior to first reading, because
Okay.
if we do first reading, then it'll require a resolution to make the change.
Right.
So, let me look at the wording and redraft that, and we'll bring it back for first reading at the next meeting,
Okay, so
okay?
Is everybody good with the rates?
like, I thought they reflected the times.
So we're right with everybody else, or a little bit cheaper, and
a little bit cheaper.
yeah,
The cost is the cost.
right.
Yeah, no.
And has been adjusted in 7 years, 8 years.
It is nice to keep it as low as possible, but you also can't lose money because you can't ride on the back of the taxpayers. So
Right.
I think they've hit a pretty good balance here. That's my opinion.
Oh, I'm fine with all that part.
Any other comments reading through it? Okay,
It's
we'll
a
move
big
on. We'll
bylaw.
leave this, we'll table it till next meeting.
Isn't it?
Do we need a motion to table it? No, okay. We'll
Thanks
move
for all
on to
your
number
hard
2.
work.
It's been a bit to
Oh.
put this together.
I bet.
We've been talking about it for months.
It's taken a while.
Okay, correspondence, Porcupine Hills Classic Cruisers Annual Show and Shine. They would like to use the ball diamonds again, August 11th. Any comments, questions?
Sounds good to me.
Best place in
It's a
town
great
for
show.
that event?
Yep.
Seems to work well there every year.
Yeah, they're great.
August
asset.
11th.
Fair days.
Yeah.
Well, day after Fair days. Motion from somebody?
I'll make the motion to let the
Councillor
Porcupine
Cutler.
Hills.
Question?
Moved by Councillor Cutler to allow the Porcupine Hills Classic Cruisers to host their event at the Centennial Park Ball Diamonds on August 11th, 2019.
All in favor? Carried. Excuse me. Request for decision, compliance policy. Marion?
Okay, so the development department, we've been reviewing some of the planning policies as per council strategic priorities in your strategic plan. So if a property is being sold or transferred to another person, we will get what's called a compliance request. So what they're looking at is whether the home complies with the land use bylaw as how it's set, or the business, how it's set on the property, and meeting all those legislative requirements. So we do have a compliance policy, and we just wanted to update that. We're now getting electronic requests, and that would be either by scanned copies or emailed copies. And so we would like to include that in the policy to allow for those requests to come before us. They would still have the surveyor's stamp and certification on there that they're current. And if they're older than, I believe it's 12 months, then it would require an affidavit from the property owner that there's been no changes to that property during that time. We also had minor changes, just to make sure that it's clear that compliance requests are for letters that indicate the state of the land and uses. Not all letters will comply, and some properties may be non-conforming or non-compliant or a combination of both, so just wanted that to be clear in the policy. Also, as I said, we had the addition of the email submission copies, and also resubmission point was altered. We put an additional point in, and I will read it to you. It says, "A compliance review shall pertain to the compliance of the use and setback requirements of the principal and accessory buildings as referenced in the current land use bylaw and noted on the survey submitted. Fences which are indicated on the real property report will not form part of the compliance letter unless they encroach onto municipal property. Any encroachment of fences onto neighboring properties is a civil matter between those property owners." So what you will see is on a compliance, on the survey, on the compliance request, it'll show that the fence is, say, 0.5 meters onto the adjacent property. But if you had the other person getting a compliance request, it would say the fence is 0.5 meters into their property. So it becomes sort of a civil issue. It's never going to be exact. Also, we wanted clarification in there that anything to do with fences and the location of property lines would be required to have an independent survey done of the property, that the town wouldn't go stake that for them or give them any indication as to where those property lines are. That's for a real property surveyor to do. This policy was discussed at the MPC on February 15th and was recommended by the MPC to come before council for approval. One other thing within the policy is in 2018, we did do an adjustment to some fees in that policy, in the previous policy, but all we did was add the deposit for temporary shipping containers. So if council would like to see us do any amendment to those fees, we would require just a motion of council to do that. It's not administration's recommendation that we update those fees currently. So before you tonight is our recommendation to approve the compliance policy as presented.
Any questions? Do you have a
So,
motion,
so
please?
we don't stake out the property?
No,
Why don't we do that?
we're not legal surveyors.
Oh, that's, okay.
There are times where they'll assist you finding a pin, but
Right.
we don't have surveyors on staff.
Oh, okay.
So the pin can be bent, it's not accurate, so that's why you need a real property report or done by
Okay.
a certified surveyor. Any other questions? We could get a motion?
I'll
Councillor
make
Schloss-
a motion.
Councillor Schlossberger? Question?
Moved by Councillor Schlossberger to adopt policy number 5.6.02, compliance policy effective February 25th, 2019 as presented.
All in favor? Carried. Number 4, request for decision, Good Neighbor Fence. Marion?
Okay, again, so this is just a review of development department policies, and we currently have a policy in place, so 595, called fencing on common driveways, and we found that that is outdated and needed to be updated. One of the amendments to the land use bylaw was to include fencing as discussed, but development permits, a development permit would not be required for a fence, was the update that was put into the land use bylaw. While new fences do have to comply with the restrictions within the land use bylaw, they do not require a permit unless there is some non-conforming or variance request that is made, and then that would have to come before the MPC for approval. The proposed policy adds some clarity and guidelines for residents when it comes to fences. And again, we just talked about, the location of property lines and those kind of things, we've put that clear in the policy that that's a responsibility of an independent surveyor. So the policy provides some consistency in our current practices, as well as guidelines and tools to be used by residents when they're looking at putting fences on their properties. Again, the Planning Commission reviewed this policy at the meeting on February 15th and are recommending approval by council.
Questions?
Is this a policy in other municipalities, the good neighbor fencing policy?
And we had Orsk, Gavin come down from Orsk and help us, and he did model it after some other communities.
Do you have to do a good neighbor fence with that?
You mean the style?
Yeah.
No, this is not the style of fence. Good neighbor simply means you're getting along with your neighbor. You're building a fence, you're both.
Right, but isn't a good neighbor fence where,
I know, that's what I have in my yard, and that's what I thought too, is like, we're telling people they have to put a good neighbor fence up, but no, it's just the naming of the
The naming
policy.
of it, this is not the style of
We're
fence.
good neighbors,
oh,
we're good neighbors, it's not the style of
The
fence you have
land
to
use
put up. I
bylaw
thought the same
has
thing.
description for the fencing.
oh, okay, so you don't have to alternate your,
No,
okay.
No, this is simply, I guess it is a play on words.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
is- That is the style of a fence, good neighbor fence.
Mhm.
And neighbor's spelled
Right.
wrong.
It's spelled wrong too.
There's a U in it.
There is too. Good point. Neighbor spelled wrong, by the way.
Depends if you're Canadian
Or American.
American.
I read it the American way.
I missed it.
Yeah, just maybe
Okay.
for clarification,
Calgary
in the
spell.
policy, it states, before doing any work, discuss your plan with adjacent property owners. The town will not mark property lines. The property owner is responsible for maintenance of their fence. They'll maintain it such that it's aesthetically pleasing. All fences must be kept in proper working order, must not pose a danger to a passerby, may not obscure sightlines. So there's a number of things within the policy, but
Yeah.
Okay.
For the land use bylaw, there's more description of it in there. Like you can't use chain link in between houses.
Yeah.
It's covered. But
This is just,
this is just meaning you're gonna get along with your neighbor when you build this fence, like do something that you both agree on.
like, don't paint their side rainbow.
Rainbow, that's a good example.
Well, then they should have come out and helped put up the fence then, and they could have painted their side all they wanted.
Sounds good.
Any other questions? A motion, please.
I'll make a motion to adopt the policy, the good neighbor policy.
Councillor Zimmer? Question, please.
Moved by Councillor Zimmer to adopt policy number 5.6.11, Good Neighbor Fence Policy, effective February 25th, 2019, as presented.
All in favor? Carried. Excuse me. Request for decision appointment of Director of Emergency Management. Marion?
So the Emergency Management Act requires that council appoint a Director of Emergency Management. The CAO has been the appointment in the past, as you were aware. We did do some adjustment of positions during the budget process this year, and Jason Hemaway will have some changes to his job description, and one would be acting as the Director of Emergency Management. So under the Act, there's some requirement for training, and Jason has since completed his Director of Emergency Management module training with Alberta Emergency Management. And so we're in a position now that council may appoint him. We do still have some ICS 100 and 200 training to complete, but we're well on our way, and we will be arranging that shortly. So,
I would like to move to appoint Jason Hemway as the Director of Emergency Management for the town of Claremont.
Motion by Councillor Cutler. Question, please.
Moved by Councillor Cutler to appoint Jason Hemaway as the Director of Emergency Management for the town of Claremont, effective February 25th, 2019.
All in favor? Carried. Number 6, request for decision of rural and northern immigration pilot application.
This is interesting.
Marion.
Okay, so it has been brought to the attention of the town by business owners within the town of Claresholm that there's a federal grant, Government of Canada pilot project for rural and northern immigration pilot project. The program is designed to use immigration to help meet local labor market needs, as well to test a new pathway for permanent residents in rural Canada for skilled foreign workers, and create welcoming environments that encourage new immigrants to stay in their new communities. So during the business visitation program in 2018, there were a number of businesses that identified a need for additional labor support, and that perhaps immigrant population could help to fill those gaps in the community. The applications must be completed by a local economic development authority. They can't come from the municipal council, but through either an organization such as the Chamber or Economic Development Office. We're not sure that our economic development structure is exact as per the program guidelines, but we're investigating that. Simply because we are an arm of government, we don't have an independent body that operates our economic development activities. But if that's the case, then perhaps the application could go in through the Chamber of Commerce or another organization that could support that. The applications are due by March 1st, and so Brady has been working hard on getting all the pieces put together to get the application put together. The criteria for being successful in the program is must have a population of less than 50,000, have job opportunities, have an economic development plan, have a local economic development organization that can manage the community, or the pilot for the community, and be able to settle new immigrants in the community by having or developing relationships with local organizations, opportunities to connect newcomers, and access to key services such as education, housing, transportation, and healthcare. So some of you would be aware that we have had experience with immigrants in the past and being able to help them adapt into the community, and has been very successful. Brady's also been in contact with an organization called Foothills Community Immigrant Services, and they're excited to work with EDC on this project. So they are out of High River, correct? And they will assist where necessary with the application, and also with letters of support or assistance with integration of the immigrants in the future. Also, the Willow Creek Community Adult Learning has expressed their support and would be able to help assist with language assessment and adult learning. So we would be looking for council support. The application does require municipal support, and so we would be looking for a resolution from council for us to move forward with an application to Canada's Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot project for immigrant servicing organization to provide support for this application through the Economic Development Committee or the Chamber of Commerce, depending on which application will have more success.
Should the motion, you've got a preliminary motion here, should the motion state or the Chamber of Commerce?
Well, we will make the application through the Economic Development Committee, but we just may have to make a change.
Just have it in the wings ready to switch. Okay. Have a motion from the floor. Any
I'll make
questions
that
first?
motion. Oh, sorry.
If they go ahead and send off the application and we are successful, what does that then mean? Like, is that,
It means local businesses can,
I know, but like, 2 people show up? Is there 20 people? Like, is it a program where they've got like, look, we got a group of 20 people looking for something? Or is it just, hey, here's 1 or 2 people?
I think it would be.
Not that it matters, it's just, it's nice to know if you're talking about 1 or 2 people or a group of 20 or 30 people looking for something.
It would kind of go on the need of the community, would it not?
Well, we would have, in the application, you would have to identify what job opportunities are available in the community, is my assumption. I haven't looked at the
Yeah.
application, but, and then they would try to connect those 2 together. So Brady was just saying it's a maximum of 100 per year into any one organization. So, you know, if we had 100 job opportunities, then that
Okay.
would probably be the most.
That's what I was worried about, is bringing, you know, here's 30 people, and great, we've only got 15 jobs.
The idea,
No, they-
yeah, the
you would
idea
have to
would
have
be
the
to
jobs
marry
first.
the program with the need.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the jobs have to be there before
Right.
you can apply.
Okay.
And with some of the fast food and 7-Elevens, and I know there is a shortage of workers, so.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you weren't bringing people over and didn't have anything for them, kind of
No,
thing.
I think it's pretty laid out in there, it has to be specified. Okay, we have any other questions? We have a motion from Councillor Schlossberger. Question?
Moved by Councillor Schlossberger to approve the Town of Claresholm Economic Development application for the Government of Canada's Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot, provided that another local or regional immigrant service organization provides its written support, and given that all other requirements of the application are met prior to the March 1st, 2019 application deadline.
All in favor? Carried.
Thanks, Buddy.
Number 7, request for decision, 2019 capital infrastructure project. Marion?
Okay, included in the 2019 budget were 3 road sections to be paved, as well as a sewer line, lining, not replacement, but lining. And the total budget was $470,000. Those 3 blocks were the 400 to 600 block of 49th Street West, the 100 block of 55th Avenue West, and the 5300 block of 2A Street East. The sewer line replacement, if you remember, we were over budget in 2018, and so that was all put off. And that was because we'd identified that there was a need for sewer line replacement in 49th Avenue. So that was included in the 2019 budget. We put that project out to tender, and the tender closed on February 11th. We received 8 submissions. And ISL Engineering, who has been doing the work for us, excuse me, is recommending that we accept the low bid from McNally Contractors of $481,116.50. That bid, that tender includes $43,700 contingency. And so obviously it would be our hope that we don't use that up. But with 481,000, that puts us approximately at 11,000 and change over our anticipated budget. So the sewer capital reserve of 150,000 is what we had for the sewer line replacement, and it looks like that's pretty close to what the budget is. And because our MSI capital funding is very stringent over the next 5 years with all the projects that we've had, we're recommending that the additional 11,000 and change come out of our general capital reserves rather than MSI, because as you're aware, we kind of have that money allocated over the next 5 years. So administration is recommending that council accept, as per our tendering policy, any bids over $200,000 require, or any contract awards over $200,000 require council ratification.
Yeah.
So we would be looking for your support for the bid from McNally.
Any questions?
Congratulations to the administration for having 8 submissions for tender. That's amazing.
We had last time.
That's the difference, getting it out early compared to late like we were last
So we had like 3 last time.
Two or three.
Way better.
We were way late last year.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank
thanks
you.
to council for approving the budget, so we could get.
Nice work, buddy. Nice work.
Okay, any other questions?
No.
I'd like to make that motion if we could.
Councillor Carlson? Question, please.
Moved by Councillor Carlson to award the 2019 capital infrastructure project to McNally Contractors in the amount of $481,116.50 plus GST, and that an additional over budget funding of $11,500 be approved out of the general capital reserve.
Everybody clear?
Yep.
All in favor? Carried. Item 8, request for direction, the name of the stormwater management facility.
I know what I want. Do you know what you want?
Yeah.
Which one do you want?
Do you know what you want?
Yeah.
Let's
Frog
start
Creek
off with.
Wetlands.
Hey, that's my pick.
That's my pick.
That's 3.
Zimmer swimming hole.
Zimmer
No.
swimming hole.
Definitely not that.
We can't do that.
Oh, we might be able to.
It's up for discussion. It's open.
Any other opinions out there? Should we name it or should we put it out to the public?
I think you should put it out to the public.
I think so too.
Just for a little bit, see.
How about we
Throw it up on the website.
we talk the local press into putting these names in the paper, and we give it till the next council for submissions for
Contest. Bob's gonna hold a contest.
if anybody agrees with these names, or maybe another name.
Thanks, Rob.
You're putting up the prize.
I think just
You are the prize.
I think just stick to those
Stick to those names.
names and just see which way
Do it as
see where
a
the chips
poll.
lie.
I liked
But-
the stormwater wetlands.
I like just a Frog Creek.
Cause that's what.
But I mean, it was
didn't
rather
know
see a
Frog
storm
Creek
than a
was
frog.
there. I think it helps people to know that there's an actual creek that runs through this town. That's
But
why.
it's also, I found it very interesting when we were doing the naming of the industrial area too, where people submitted that stuff, it just got community involvement.
Mm-hmm.
And then it lets people know what it is and where it is, and they might take interest in looking into it, right? So,
If we could put it in the paper, and then we'll take it to our.
our open house or something.
No, we're not going to make the paper.
Too late.
No.
Do you want me to just explain
Oh.
why we're here?
Mary?
Why we're
Sure.
talking about this whole
Marion
other
wants her
name?
to.
Marion wants her.
Where's it?
She obviously picked one of them.
I think there's some great names there. But we are in the process of doing signage for a stormwater management facility, and there is no name for it, so we can call it the stormwater management facility, but it didn't sound very creative.
No.
So, that's why it's before council tonight. But we do have the 4 options before you, and we can put those out. I mean, there's no rush on making a decision, we just need it for the signage. So within the next month probably would be sufficient. So we can put something out in the paper, we could put something on our website and just get people to
And take
give
it
their
to the open
feedback
house.
on it, and we can put other as an option, and there might be some creative name that someone comes up with. These are just names that administratively we kind of bantered about.
Great
so.
names.
They are.
Don't get too far, like don't.
I have nothing to do with it. This is not a creative person.
See, that's why I said don't get too far.
You're
with that.
super excellent at the straight lines, though, Mary.
I was trying
Okay, so we
I
will.
was trying to figure out where
I think
Island
we'll
Prairie Park
bring
is.
these up at the open house on Thursday.
Yeah, we could have something there.
Just to bring them up, and if
I mean, we won't put them in the presentation, but we'll have something there
Mm.
Some
for
maybe-
people to submit.
just yeah, and if Rob will put it in the paper, then we'll see what happens by the next council meeting.
Cool.
Tell the people it's a creek, not a creek.
Correct.
I'm not saying that.
Unbelievable.
Creek just sounds funny.
I think you're not American. Okay, we'll move on from that one. We'll leave that for next meeting. Number 9, financial report, statement of operations. Any questions?
See, there wasn't any red numbers on it this time.
There's no red numbers.
No comments yet, we're only 1 month into being.
Right in the budget. Fantastic.
Yeah, everything's under budget.
Doing good.
That's a good way to be in January.
That's right.
We need a motion to accept the financial report.
I'll make a motion to accept the financial report as presented.
Question?
Moved by Councillor Zimmer to accept the consolidated statement of operations for the month ended January 31st, 2019 as presented.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Can agree on everything throughout the whole
Well,
meeting.
that's a very good point.
There we go.
It's like that documented.
No. we're
Information brief, Emerson Park redesign. This is just information. We've been meeting with community groups, coming up with ideas on how to fix up the park downtown. And there's been some very interesting ideas come up. We're a little too early to talk about, exactly what they are because we really haven't picked the direction we're going to go. But we're getting a lot of involvement from the Kinsmen. We're hoping to get the Kinets in there. The Lions are involved. FCSS was at the last meeting.
Nice.
Chamber.
Excellent.
Trying to think of everybody. But we're getting a lot of input.
Park Society.
Art Society.
The Art Society,
Oh,
we've
nice.
got them coming to the next meeting.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Because, there could be like possibly a stage or a small amphitheater down there. There's lots of things we could do, so we're just looking for direction. So this is just information to tell you we're working on it.
Cool beans.
CAO information. Any questions for Marion on that?
Done very well.
Yeah, really.
You
Looks
suck on
beautiful,
that.
eh?
Okay, we'll take that for information. Number 12, council resolution status. Any questions in there? Take it for information. And any questions in the information items?
No, I didn't have any.
No? If we could get a motion to adopt the information items. Councillor Sloat?
Who's that?
Mouth
Schultz.
stuck together just when I
Schultz.
start to say it. Question?
Moved by Councillor Schultz to accept the information items as presented.
All in favor? Carried. And a motion to go in camera. Councillor Cutler.
Thank you.
All in favor? Carried. If we could turn the camera off and take a break. Okay, motion to come out of in camera. All in favor of coming out of in camera? Carried. Okay, we need a motion for this, I got my glasses off, I took them off. Shared services agreement with the MD of Willow Creek. Councillor Schlossberger. All in favor?
Question?
Question?
Questions?
Question called.
Moved by Councillor Schlossberger to enter into a shared services agreement with the Municipal District of Willow
Trying to
Creek
get
number 26
Yeah.
for the purposes of traffic enforcement and traffic safety operations.
All in favor? Carried. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Carlson, we are adjourned. Could we turn the camera off, please?